ballot initiative in California, the Prop 8 about marriage equality. We'll try to bring our viewers an update on that. A lot ahead in these next couple hours to keep watching.
Just to talk about Florida for a minute, Anderson, what was so interesting to me is we all knew that it was going to be close and tight there, but Barack Obama used his money wisely there. He outspent John McCain 4-1, visited the state a tremendous amount of times, but also identified 600,000 African-American voters who had been registered to vote in the last election but didn't show up. Identified each one of those voters and made sure that they turned out for this election. In the end, we don't know yet. That may have provided the margin for him. We just don't know.
It's pretty clear now that his popular vote, his majority is going to be the largest we have seen since Lyndon Johnson, and that is a significant achievement. It's also pretty clear that his electoral college vote is now going to make him, that he has reached what he hoped to do, and that was become a national winner and not just a winner in the blue states plus one. I mean, he has really... pulling in Florida and North Carolina, I mean, Florida and Virginia, possibly North Carolina, gives him that southern base. Pulling in now New Mexico, looks like Nevada and Colorado.
And that makes a difference when he actually gets to Washington.
It makes a very big difference, Anderson. In the perception that he is a national president. He represents all sections of the country. He is not a bi-coastal president alone. Yes, his great strength is in the West and in the Northeast, but he's more national. I also think
he's right.
It
I like the
way he's
analyzing. Yeah.
But I also think it puts a burden on him to represent everybody. Go back to an earlier conversation, whether you govern from essentially the center left or you govern from the left. I think in order to keep that coalition together, that's going to push him. And a lot of people are going to be coming with him in the House of Representatives, especially, but also some of these senators to be more of a center-left.
If anything, the way he ran his campaign, though, seemed to be reaching out to as many diverse groups as possible, whereas the McCain campaign seemed, rightly or wrongly, to be whittling down the groups that they were appealing to.
I think that's absolutely right. But remember how often the John McCain just did give a very generous valedictory there, and good for him, and Sarah Palin. But how often they accused of Barack Obama of being the most liberal member of the Senate. This is going to be a liberal cabal, and it's going to be represent, a very small, the elites of the country. This is not what this victory is about. It represents masses of Americans, and in a way that really sends a very different signal to everybody. Wait a minute, I got elected by much of the country, and I have strength in all sections of the country.
Take a look at some of these numbers. He got 96% of the African-American vote. This is off exit polls, the latest that we've had. 67% of the Latino vote, 66% of the youth vote, 68% of the new voters voting, which made up 11% of the electorate. 68% of them. So there's definitely this message of inclusion that seemed to resonate. And I agree that there is this issue of how do you appeal to everybody at all times. That's a bigger challenge when you're campaigning and promising things as opposed to campaigning and being elected and then delivering.
But he's going to deliver.
But also, it's a symbol of a new America, the America of 2050, where minorities make up the majority in this country. That is the point in the census, where minorities will be the minority. The face of America is changing. It's not Joe the plumber.
And in terms of his use of power, he can go to members of Congress and say, you know what, I brought you here. You're going to owe me one. And he can go to conservatives that way, and he can go to liberals that way. And so in the end, he can become a conciliator. Even though lots of people say he's a liberal, his nature is to be a conciliator, and I think he has a great opportunity to do that right now in the Congress.
He has an opportunity tonight. The speech tonight now becomes very, very important because this is a moment when he shows how he's.
It's not just about celebrating tonight; it's about looking forward.
It's looking forward.
I think the Trump part too, and particularly in Florida, when we're talking about Florida, obviously the economic situation really dominated there because McCain thought that the older voters were going to go his way. He didn't really think he was going to have to fight for Florida in the way that he had to. And despite the older voters being in Florida, they were, as was mentioned before, hit by this economic situation with the housing situation. And then the other Trump, obviously, is that youth voter. Year after year, election after election, we always talk about the young people being energized and inspired and getting out, and then they never turn up or they never turn out. Well, this is the election. This was the year they did actually turn out, and it was in Obama's favor.
Also, for the first time in Florida, a Democrat won a majority of the Latino vote. Talking about that generation. I mean, that is, Matt Barrett's been sending emails all night talking about how critical that is. And when Bill was here earlier, we were talking about this shift. what you're seeing is California, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada. You're seeing it, not necessarily in Texas, Florida. This whole new coalition, Democrats don't have to rely on 45, 50% in terms of white voters, in terms of the whole coalition. And so, how they run campaigns, Obama has shown even how that changes the kind of campaigns you're going to see over the next 4 years in terms of how they do the whole outreach. And so I think from a Republican standpoint, how Bush did so well in 2004 with Hispanics, I mean, they have a serious issue now as to how they position this party to win elections
This is like
going
come
forward.
to Jesus for the Republican Party, certainly in many ways. Well, I mean, and so many on so many levels.
No, Biden.
I've got to believe, and I've written on this, that
No,
this is
Biden
really
is not going to
an
run for
eye-opener the
president.
Republican Party, and it does have to reevaluate and reassess.
Biden gaps too much. He's not going to run for president. After 8 years, Clinton will come back.
The moderates within the party, minorities. I think that
She will win, yeah.
something that has had to be had with the party starting back in 2006.
Your husband will be around.
Are so important in this election. McCain, when he was an independent, was running ahead of the Republican plan. When he became more of a tax and spend, old-fashioned Republican,
By the special grace of God, he'll be around.
we didn't do as well. And so, now I think with the new president, in Barack Obama, it's like a great national Rorschach test. You look at him, and what do you see? And to the liberals, they might see a liberal.
Right.
And to the moderates, you might see a moderate. We just don't know what it's going to be.
The African Americans say African American, he's also half white.
Exactly.
But bottom line is, the guy
And
is.
this is why he has to represent all of America. There's a lot we can be inspired by, but he's the president for all of America.
President-elect Obama is on site in the location at Grant Park. We are, of course, going to bring you his comments live. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, most likely Barack Obama.
Tell me something. Why does my company have